Manchester United can generate hundreds of millions in revenue and still owe more than £1 billion when you include borrowing, transfer installments, and other obligations. Tottenham built one of the best stadiums in the world and ended up carrying enormous debt connected to it. Barcelona arranged €1.45 billion of financing for the wider Espai Barça project. Read enough football accounts, and every famous club starts to resemble a man wearing designer clothes while asking whether you can lend him money until Friday. The natural conclusion is that these clubs are broke. Debt alone cannot tell you that. A club borrowing £500 million to build a stadium that increases revenue for 30 years is in a different position from a club borrowing money every month because it cannot pay wages. Both balance sheets say debt, but the reason, price, and repayment schedule matter. Football clubs use debt for the same reason other large businesses use it. Their ambitions arrive before the cash needed to fund them. A stadium requires construction money now and produces ticket or hospitality income later. Transfer deals create a similar timing problem because clubs often agree a total fee and pay it over several seasons. The accounts can show a huge amount owed to other clubs even when those installments are proceeding exactly as agreed. My imaginary girlfriend understands this perfectly. She says the 2,000 cedis on my credit card is not debt because the payment date has not arrived. I admire the confidence, although the bank appears committed to the traditional definition. There is another reason the headline can look worse than the reality. Accounting reports several kinds of obligation beside each other. Bank loans, amounts owed on transfers, and money advanced by an owner all create liabilities, yet they behave differently. A transfer installment may be interest-free and matched by money the club is due from another sale. An owner loan may have no immediate repayment demand. A bank facility can charge interest from the day it is used. Combining them produces a dramatic total, without explaining which payment could actually hurt the club next month. Supporters need the maturity dates almost as much as the balance. £1 billion due over 20 years is a different problem from £100 million due before Friday. The first distinction is between productive debt and survival debt. Stadium financing can be productive when the new building generates enough extra income to cover interest and repayments. Tottenham Stadium was designed for football and major non-football events, giving the club more premium seating and commercial opportunities throughout the year. Barcelona's financing plan expects income from the redeveloped Camp Nou to help service the borrowing after construction. The club is using future stadium cash to pay for the asset creating that cash. Owner loans can also be relatively gentle. A wealthy owner may lend money at a low interest rate, accept repayment far in the future, or eventually convert the loan into equity. Bank debt and specialist lenders usually demand stronger protections because they are investing for a financial return. Interest rates then become crucial. £500 million at a low fixed rate can be manageable for a club with stable Premier League income. A smaller loan at an expensive rate can drain a struggling club every season. Debt secured against the stadium or future transfer income also places important assets at risk when results deteriorate. Looking only at the headline balance misses the whole argument. My girlfriend owes me money, and the bank owes depositors money. Only one of those arrangements has functioning paperwork and a realistic repayment plan. Again, the label is the same. My confidence in recovery is very different. The interest rate also reveals how lenders view the risk. A stable club with valuable property and predictable broadcast income can borrow more cheaply because the lender expects repayment. A distressed club with no cash reserve may end up using specialist finance secured against future transfer installments or broadcast distributions. That money is expensive because the lender is effectively being paid to believe an optimistic football plan. Refinancing can postpone the difficult day, although the new loan may increase the interest bill. Clubs sometimes announce refinancing as if the debt has disappeared. Usually, the old lender has simply been replaced by a new lender wearing a nicer suit. Football creates debt because spending is competitive. Revenue is earned gradually through broadcast distributions, sponsorship contracts, and matches, while transfers happen during short windows. If a club waits until every pound is sitting in the bank, its target may sign somewhere else. Borrowing or using a revolving credit facility lets the club act now and repay when expected revenue arrives. Transfer installments perform a similar job between clubs. Manchester United's accounts showed debt of £637 million in June 2025 from historic secured borrowing and credit facilities, while the wider figure owed rose above £1 billion once transfer payables and other items were included. The club was also owed more than £100 million by other clubs. Football finance is full of these overlapping obligations. One team owes money for your former winner, while you owe another team for his replacement. The system works while expected cash keeps arriving. Problems begin when a club borrows against an optimistic future, and that future fails to appear. Missing European qualification removes prize money. Relegation causes an even larger revenue collapse. An owner can stop funding losses, a broadcaster can fail, or a transfer market can cool down just when the club planned to sell players. Interest and installments continue because lenders have never accepted "our striker missed a penalty" as a repayment holiday. Player trading makes the cash flow picture even stranger. A sale creates accounting profit based on the player's remaining book value, but the buyer may pay the fee over several years. The selling club can report a healthy profit and still wait for much of the cash. Some clubs then borrow against those future receivables so they can spend immediately. This is useful when managed carefully and dangerous when the next season's income has already been committed to repay yesterday's squad. The balance sheet can therefore improve while the bank account remains uncomfortable. Football supporters hear the word profit and assume there is money available for a striker. The finance director hears profit and checks when the installment is arriving. This is why asking whether a club has debt is less useful than asking whether the club can service it. Start with the annual interest cost and the dates repayments are due. Compare those commitments with reliable operating cash rather than a hopeful Champions League run. Check who provided the loan and what security they hold. Then look at what the borrowing purchased. Infrastructure with a long useful life can justify long-term financing. Old takeover debt that produced no new club asset feels very different, which is why Manchester United supporters have spent years angry about debt linked to the Glazer acquisition. The club became responsible for financing a change of ownership rather than receiving a new stadium in return. Debt also reduces flexibility, even when default is unlikely. Money spent on interest cannot fund players or repairs, and future revenue has already been promised before it arrives. A rich club can carry huge debt safely because its income is predictable. A smaller club may be one failed promotion attempt away from distress with a much lower headline figure. Football clubs have so much debt because owners are trying to accelerate growth in an industry where waiting can feel like losing. Some borrow to build assets, while others use tomorrow's money to support today's squad. The arrangement survives when tomorrow produces enough cash. When it does not, debt stops being a finance tool and starts making decisions for the club. That is the number supporters should worry about. How much of the future has already been sold to pay for the present? Cash, revenue, and profit answer separate questions. Revenue tells you the scale of the business. Profit shows whether recognized income exceeded recognized costs during an accounting period. Cash determines whether the club can meet the payment due today. Debt connects all three by moving cash across time. That can be sensible when it funds an asset or bridges reliable income, and reckless when it keeps an unsustainable wage bill alive. The most useful comparison is debt service against recurring cash generation after ordinary football costs. If interest keeps rising while the club depends on player sales to pay normal bills, the borrowing has stopped accelerating growth. It is covering a business that cannot support itself. That's it. That's all I have. Bye-bye.